The Neolithic Revolution, a time of great social and economic change, as well as agricultural change. At this point during our history, we constantly roamed the earth, looking for food. It wasn't until the Neolithic Revolution that we actually began to build and mold our own societies into something incredible. As we can see here, people realized that settling in one spot could increase their chances of survival. Along with herding and domesticating animals, they also farmed and grew their own crops instead of going out and gathering edible plants. Because of these changes, the population grew and still continues to grow. This drastic change didn't just happen in one part of the world either. It happened all over the world about 12,000 to 8,000 years ago. In fact, the term Neolithic refers to both the period of time when it occurred as well as the enduring changes it caused. The lifestyles of hunters and gatherers weren't that complicated at all. The main way of getting food was, as the name implied, hunting and gathering. They hunted animals that were in their area and also picked and gathered plants that were also near them. To the realization that humans began to change in the agricultural way of life by growing crops and leaving the idea of hunting animals and gathering fruits, berries, and so on behind. They began to become more settled since they don't have to move to get their supplies and food. Also, people began to domesticate animals and use them to an advantage. For instance, they used animals to plow or use their fur for warmth and their meat for protein. Began to make more supplies, including farming tools and weapons to take out intruders that threatened their starting communities and civilizations. The settled lifestyles came into play because one did not need to move when the crops and supplies were right there. Animals were domesticated to help out the daily lives of humans. Animals were a very important essential they needed. Humans began to ally with one another, and then a big group of people were working together to keep each other safe and living, which brought people to take leadership and then, from that, build social classes. As we can see here, the Neolithic Revolution happened in civilizations in places such as North America, South America, Africa, Europe, and Asia.
So now let's go to the open letter to the average man in the Neolithic era. But before we do that, let's see what we have under here. Well, when you look at that, it's stone tools. Dear average man in the Neolithic era, you are so awesome for switching from hunting and gathering to actually settling down and building a community. Not only did you help shape world history as we know it today, but we also started what is known as the Neolithic era. We also began to using stone tools like these to your own benefit by making houses, using them for weapons. Using these stone tools helped you cut through skin and meat, which is what you ate in order to survive, along with the rest of your community. Thanks for switching it up a bit instead of doing that hunting and gathering thing. Thanks to you, people can now wait 2 whole minutes to get their Big Macs from McDonald's instead of actually finding food and cooking. Good luck with the new community, by the way. Sincerely, Fernando. Environmental interaction was involved when humans used the earth to grow crops and build shelter upon it. Politics as well, for once the groups of people lived together, they needed a way to civilize the community they lived in. Empires grew upon the rising civilizations that came from the groups of sedentary humans. Culture was in play for people to entertain themselves and then came up with their own beliefs and rituals. This later turned into the formation of religion. The social aspect was another big part of this time period, since people were together, communicating, and having fun. Another reason why it was so important was because they began to form civilizations which many people in those communities. The Neolithic Revolution is very difficult to comprehend because of its big impact on the way we do things today. Not only that, but it's also a very big subject to cover in a short amount of time. At the time, it was such a drastic change. We had gone from roaming constantly to building stable societies. We had begun to use new techniques and tools to ensure our survival. Neolithic period is also very significant for the amount of polished stone tools and spread of agriculture we used. Stone tools helped us begin building necessities that we needed, like houses, and weapons. Agriculture was done. The Neolithic Revolution is a huge jump in the development of mankind. Man would not even be close to the point we are right now without the Neolithic Revolution. The Neolithic Revolution was a huge part in the development of humans and should be considered the biggest step mankind ever took. Its significance shouldn't be overlooked or overshadowed. One of the major revolutions in our species' history. We should continue to learn more and more about the Neolithic Revolution because without it, we would most likely still be hunters and gatherers.
Thanks for watching our crash course on the Neolithic Revolution.
Have a great day.